A major GOP donor has decided that he's going to use his money now to elect Democrats. Now, this is Seth Klarman. He is the CEO of Boston's Baupost Group. So that's basically a hedge fund that's worth $30 billion. So it's a major, major hedge fund. Now, he's doing this because he says he's very unhappy with the Republican Party that he had helped fund. In fact, he says that, man, all the stuff that the Republican Party has done lately under Trump is just absolutely terrible. For example, the tax cut. Now, Klarman told the Boston Globe, quote, "I received a tax cut I neither need nor want." Oh, now that's very interesting. Now, here's a billionaire hedge fund guy saying, I just don't want this gigantic tax cut that I got. Oh, and so, look, the resistance looks at that, and they're like, that's our guy. Yes, here we go. But wait. There's some information about this guy that you might need to know. Now, first, he says, quote, "I'm choosing to invest what I made from the tax cut to fight the administration's flawed policies and to elect Democrats to the Senate and House of Representatives." Now, to be absolutely clear here, Seth Klarman identifies as an independent. However, he has a history of giving to Republicans. In fact, he gave about $7 million to Republican candidates and political committees during President Obama's administration. So definitely this guy tends to lean to the right, even though he calls himself an independent. Very interesting. Now, here's the thing about that, right? So what did you think was going to happen when you supported Republicans? It's not like they haven't ran on gigantic tax cuts. Of course, that's their entire platform. Tax cuts. That's the only thing they know how to do other than deregulate industry. So, oh no, Republicans stand for cutting taxes and deregulation. And that's it. That's what they do when they get into office. So, and look, we have proof of that. What happened in the Bush administration? George W. Bush came in, cut taxes, and deregulated industry. So I'm kind of curious at this entire change of heart. Well, Klarman says that Republicans in Congress have failed to hold President Trump accountable. Well, that is absolutely true. Accountable for what? Doing everything that they want him to? Again, destroying environmental regulations? Check. Giving gigantic tax cuts to the rich and corporations? Check. And deregulating industry? Check. I might have already mentioned that. Nonetheless, that's essentially what they do. That's their entire playbook. And then, of course, they're going to use that, as we've talked about before, as a excuse to cut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. That's the other part of the plan that they don't really want you to know about. But they say, oh, we're going to have to do that for the sake of fiscal responsibility. We're going to have to cut these massive entitlements. Here we go again. But anyway, as far as values, right? Now, he added that GOP lawmakers had, quote, abandoned their historic beliefs and values. What values? The Republican Party of today doesn't have values. I have never known, since I started following politics, of a Republican Party that had actual values. Even when I was younger, when I was paying attention to the impeachment of Bill Clinton, right? Of them, I was noticed that they didn't have any values. Because you had people like Dennis Hastert that were trying to go after Bill Clinton, of all people, right? So, and Hastert, of course, has his own problems. But anyway, that entire episode just showed off their rank hypocrisy. Because then later on, of course, here we have Donald Trump, who has done far worse than Bill Clinton. So, but anyway, and look, what they both did was bad. Let's just be 100% clear about that. Now, here's the thing, right? Their policies are not in favor of the American people. For example, they call themselves pro-family, right? Well, their policies hurt families. They eliminate social safety nets. They eliminate programs. They cut education, which impacts children and families. And they also keep us from having things like universal child care and higher wages for working parents and things like health care for everybody. For up to Republicans, they would get rid of things like the child health insurance program, CHIP. And in fact, they even held that hostage. So, no, they're not pro-family. Pro-family is just another way of saying we just don't like gay people and transgender people. Not only that, but look, traditional value. Oh, they're pro-life, right? Well, for one, being for the death penalty is not exactly pro-life. Just saying, that's not a pro-life position. Supporting police that regularly, shockingly, on a lot of occasions, murder unarmed black people. That's not a pro-life position. And fiscal responsibility. No, not at all. Again, every time they get into office, they slash taxes on the rich and corporations while giving more and more money to the military. Well, that military ends up getting us into gigantic wars for private gain. So, but again, what do you expect? If you've been paying attention to what Republican politicians actually do when they get into office, you would see that pattern. You would see that. But this guy apparently, I didn't see it. Until Trump came into office. Very interesting on that evolution. But he says, quote, "For the good of the country, the Democrats must take back one or both houses of Congress." And since, of course, coming out is very anti-Trump, which he was during the presidential primary, and after Donald Trump won the nomination of the party, he's like, oh, no, fuck this. I'm not for this guy. I'm not for Trump. I'm a never-Trumper, okay? So since then, Klarman has given about $222,000 to 78 Democrats running for Congress since 2016. So you've got $220,000 versus the $7 million he gave during the 8 years of President Obama. So let's just put those numbers into comparison. Now, it's not going to surprise you what kind of Democrats someone like Klarman actually supports. He has donated to lawmakers such as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Adam Schiff, Cory Booker, and other similar establishment Democrats, and also the establishment Democrats that are actually incredibly pro-Israel. So, now some of the causes that he's given to, even though he runs what they call a philanthropist organization that gives charity, things that he's given to is charter schools. Not only has he funded charter schools, but he's also funded movements aimed to destroy teachers' unions. And he has said privatization is the one way we can fix education. Not only that, but an article in The Intercept last year reveals where some of his money comes from. In fact, Klarman, his company, happens to be a holder of a massive chunk of Puerto Rican debt. David Dayen wrote last year, quote, "The Baupost Group, a Boston-based hedge fund managed by billionaire Seth Klarman, owns nearly $1 billion of Puerto Rican debt purchased under a shell company subsidiary and hidden from public scrutiny." So not only did his company buy this Puerto Rican debt, but they did it in a way to obfuscate, to say, oh, you know what, we don't want people to know that we just bought part of Puerto Rico's debt. And so now Puerto Rico owes us money. Now, he writes that Baupost acquired the debt through an on-paper Delaware-based corporation named Decagon Holdings LLC, which, of course, they find out is not necessarily an actual real company, but as I mentioned before, a shell company. And I suggest you read the article because it is fascinating. We'll have that in the description. The Baupost Group is a holder of Cofina bonds through the Decagon entities, said Baupost spokesperson Diana DeSocio. Baupost regularly makes investments through subsidiary holding entities. She added that Klarman, one of the richest hedge fund managers in the world, did not hold any Puerto Rican debt individually, but was all through his company. Well, maybe because he owned it, if he owned it individually, you could trace it back to him, and that would get him in trouble. Turns out, Boston happens to have a sizable Puerto Rican community, and they would not be happy to know that Klarman is basically continuing the impoverishing conditions in Puerto Rico in order to make an extra buck. Let me give you the debt terms, right? Now, Dan continues, though the island, currently recovering from a catastrophic hurricane, has been mired in a borrowing crisis for years, it's difficult to get precise information about the creditors. Many of them scooped up bonds in the cheap, seeking an astronomical payout by forcing the island to pay them back at par, which is 100%, or I'm sorry, 100 cents on the dollar. So, whatever we borrowed, you're going to pay back, or I'm sorry, for however much we bought your debt for, you are going to pay us back 100%. This has led to widespread suffering, as punishing austerity has been imposed to encourage Puerto Rico to pay back the bondholders in full. We don't know if one of his companies are the ones with these kinds of terms, but wow, it would not surprise me, especially going to the lengths to hide it, as Klarman has done. Now, his company holds about $1 billion worth of debt, as I mentioned. And look, they could change the terms if their terms are unfavorable to be more favorable to the island, or they could forgive the debt. But they don't because, well, there's profit in this. I mean, who cares about the suffering of Puerto Rican citizens anyway? Which, by the way, are American citizens. But hey, look at me. Trump's bad. Trump's bad. I support Democrats now. Because the Republican Party is terrible. No, you're terrible. You're part of the problem. But look, if you're not convinced yet that this guy does not have any good intentions when it comes to giving to the Democrats, then consider some of the people who he supported in 2016. For example, he wrote a $100,000 check to Hillary Clinton. Supported her, but also he gave to Please Clap Jeb Bush and Carly Fiorina. So he's given to some truly awful people. He is establishment through and through. Even taking the establishment position, as I said, on Israel. Now, that position is the right-wing government of Israel is always 100% right in everything it does, and you cannot criticize them or else you're anti-Semitic. But wait, you can have a position and an opinion on the right-wing conservative government of Israel that right now is doing illegal settlements in Gaza and is currently mowing down peaceful protesters by the hundreds right now in Gaza. You can take a position against that and not be anti-Semitic. You can believe in a two-state solution and not be anti-Semitic. In fact, that's probably the only thing that's actually going to stop the conflict. But that's something that the right-wing government does not want to accept. So, nonetheless, at the end of the day, I think that his money will be used to fight not only Republicans that have gotten even more extreme, but also to fight against progressives, because this guy is not somebody who I believe supports progressive causes. So, look, him basically giving his money now to the Democrats kind of shows you how far to the right the Democratic Party has actually gone and why there needs to be massive change. He needs to go home to the right wing where he belongs. We don't want his stinking money. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.